Okay, so I have my brushes here all ready to go. And I'm here at the sink. There was a 15-minute interlude while I looked for the tripod. You don't need to worry about that. So I'm gonna turn the water on here and demo exactly what I'm doing. First, I have my brushes, and some people use a fancy schmancy brush cleaner. Me, I'm all about the Murphy's Oil Soap. It cleans the brushes really well, keeps them really soft, and it's cheap. There are lots of other things you can do. This is just what I do. So, I have my brushes. I'm gonna turn on the warm water. I'm gonna turn it on. Hopefully you'll still be able to hear me with the brushes. And I'm just gonna run the warm water over the brushes here. Hopefully you can still see what's happening. Yeah, there we go. So, a lot of people say don't mix oil and water, so you shouldn't use water to clean your brushes if you're painting with oil. I think you do whatever works for you. Now, I'm gonna take, let's see if I can show you this. I'm gonna take just a little bit of Murphy's Oil Soap in the palm of my hand, and I am gonna start, I always start with the cleanest brush first. That way I can reuse the soap as much as possible. And I'm just gonna kind of paint the palm of my hand. Now, you know, I said that you don't really worry too much about, let's see if I can show you this. You don't really worry too much about getting the paint, you wanna paint with the tip of this very fine tipped brush, the sable. Well, when you're cleaning it, you kind of want to apply the same principle, but you also want to make sure that there is no paint left in that brush. So, if too much water gets into the handle is wood, so it will split and swell and crack, and that's not something you want either. So that's just something to consider. So I'm generally holding the brush down so the water goes that way, not that way. And I'm just gonna kind of milk the brush a little bit. I still have some Murphy's Oil Soap in my palm. So now I'm gonna kind of go back a little more vigorously. See, I'm kind of getting it good and flat here. Just gonna make sure, and I'm gonna do this until it's clear. And this brush was pretty clean. Oh look, I don't know if you saw that. When I milked it, see, I want white bubbles there. Not green. So I finally have white bubbles. So now just gonna rinse this a little bit. Again, I'm gonna rinse my hand. And again, I'm still holding the brush down so the water is not getting into the ferrule or the handle. And I'm just gonna make sure there's no residue. Make sure the brush feels clean, doesn't feel soapy. And this is kind of the most important part, so I'm gonna make sure you can really see this. I'm going to take my 3 fingers. I'm just gonna milk all the water down. Make sure it dries. Reshape it so that I get that nice fine point that I am so worried about preserving. So once I do that, then I'm gonna take my towel that I use just for this purpose, and I'm going to dry the ferrule and the handle, and I'm gonna run it ever so slightly across the bristles as well, just to make sure it's nice and dry. Then I'm going to lay it flat. I usually keep them right here. I'm also always really careful. I do use my kitchen sink for cleaning brushes. However, this side is always my brush cleaning side. This side over here is where I keep most of my food. Brushes, food. It's just my own little preference, but Again, we want to avoid those toxins in our system however we can. And I also always make sure that there are no dishes over on this side. It gives me an excuse to clean the kitchen. So I'm ready to move to my next brush, and I'm just going to repeat the process. This one's a little dirtier, so I'm going to show you what happens here. So I've put the Murphy's oil soap in the palm of my hand, and I'm just going to start painting. And you'll see, look, the Murphy's oil soap turned green because I was using a lot of green paint in this brush. So, you know, just gonna kind of scrub it around and milk it a bit, just like this. I'm a little harsher with this brush. It's a bristle brush, it can take it. So, look, see how my fingers are green there? Can you see that? Green, not good. Not what we want. We want not green. We want white bubbles. So this one, I might have to repeat this process a little bit. You can see here, it's kind of green down there. I'm gonna rinse it. Rinse and repeat, just like shampoo. Repeat as desired. So with brushes, you're gonna kind of clean them a little more. And do that again. Again, into the palm. Paint around. Oh, this one's much cleaner. It's cleaner already. So you're gonna be probably pretty happy with this. We're gonna get white suds at the end. Okay. So I've cleaned this brush a couple of more times. Got it good and ready. Now I'm getting nice white suds there. And gonna rinse it. And of course now it's nice and clean, no more suds. And I've reshaped it. I just kind of did that automatically. Reshape it. And dry it off with a towel. So as you noticed, I started with the brush that I cared most about, and I'm moving to the brush, whoops, let's reshape that. Moving to the brush that I care least rats. Okay, stop that. So again, look, I just dropped that. So I have to reshape it again. Okay, I've moved to the brush that I care least about. Because honestly, your fingers start to get pruny, it just starts to become a process. It's so tedious occasionally. Sometimes you just want to be done, you don't have a lot of time. So always start with the most important brush. That's my philosophy. Really, I mean, to be honest, some of these brushes, they cost $2. If I forget to clean it, it's not that big a deal. You don't want to do that with all of them, but if you're scrunched for time, clean the $16 brush before you clean the $2 brush. You got it? Okay, so this is my brush that was really, really icky. And what I'm gonna do to start is I've soaked it in the mineral spirits, and this one's not so stiff, but if they're pretty stiff, then, you know, if the bristles aren't bending, then there's also a Winsor & Newton brush restore soaking stuff, but you have to be kind of careful with that stuff because it's pretty powerful. So I've got this one, it's nice and soft, soaked in the mineral spirits just a little bit since I forgot to wash it last time. And I'm just gonna repeat that same process. This time it might take a little while. You'll start to see it just takes a while for the soap to kind of soften everything up a bit. So yeah, you know, patience or trash can. there are a few options. And don't be afraid to just really dig your fingernails, especially into a brush that, you know, has been around for a while. Just really dig your fingernails in, get it nice and clean. Kind of, see, you can start to see there, the stuff is kind of breaking down, you know, bit by bit. Okay, so again, rinse and repeat. So we've rinsed and repeated. We're set to go. So again, see the bristles are much softer, smoother now. It's still, this brush will, it's never going to be my most favorite brush ever again, but I've restored it, and you can kind of work with it. Just takes a little practice and patience. So finally, the most important part, as I said, well, not the most important part, but lay flat to dry. So put my top back on my Murphy's Oil soap, and put it away. And I'll leave my brushes there for a couple of hours just so the water doesn't roll back into the handle. And I'm done. That's how to clean brushes.